Revenge Served Royal, a Mystery, Lady Petra Inquires, Book 3, by Celeste Connally, narrated by Ailey Beaton. 1. Sunday, 20th of August, 1815, Forsyth House, Berkeley Square, London. Mrs. Byng cowered in the corner of the Forsyth House kitchens, using her long wooden spoon like a sabre, jabbing wildly at anyone who attempted to approach her. "Stay back!" she cried in a shaking voice. "You shall not force me to go!" With the last parry that had a wide-eyed kitchen maid leaping backward, a crumpled piece of paper slipped from Mrs. Byng's hand and wafted to the floor. Mrs. Ruddle, who always exhibited the stoic countenance of a respected housekeeper, now radiated disapproval at witnessing what she considered needless histrionic behaviour. "Mrs. Byng, you must take hold of yourself," she hissed. "How could you behave this way in front of her ladyship? It is unseemly." Yet she too was rebuffed by a thrust of Mrs. Byng's rapier-like wooden spoon. Lady Petra Forsyth, her ladyship in question, decided it was time to intervene. "Mrs. Byng, I am sorry to see you so out of sorts. Pray tell, whatever is the matter?" Her gentle tone only caused the normally stalwart cook's lower lip to tremble further. Mrs. Byng's soft brown eyes filled with tears, and her ever-calm voice rose up another octave, causing Sable, the sleek brown pointing dog sitting at Petra's feet, to tilt her head first one way, then the other. "But, my lady, I do not know. What could they want with me? I cannot think on what I could have done." "Well then, let us see, shall we?" With a word from Petra uttered in Gaelic, Sable trotted forward and picked up the crumpled paper, bringing it back with a gently wagging tail, which then began to beat twice as fast. Petra knew exactly who would make her dog react that way. The sound of boot heels coming to a stop in the doorway behind her made her certain, as did her cook's reaction. "Mr. Shawcross, I do beg your pardon, sir," Mrs. Byng said on a shaky breath, her hands flying to her mob cap, which had gone lopsided over her normally neat dark chignon that was just beginning to show a strand or two of silver. At present, with tendrils coming loose, and her cheeks now blushing the same colour as the merry flames beneath a set of 3 chickens on a spit, Mrs. Byng looked like the windswept, fresh-faced girl she must have been when she was growing up on the Devon coast. "Nonsense, Mrs. Byng," came Duncan's cheerful reply. "You are never in the wrong in this kitchen so far as I have ever witnessed, and as such need never to beg my pardon." This kindness was too much for Mrs. Byng. She pulled her apron up to cover her face, which had flushed an additional shade of red, and let out a strangled sob. Petra whirled to give an exasperated look to the tall, roguish-looking man with hair the colour of dark molasses and decidedly naughty green eyes that crinkled at the edges at the sight of her. She pointed over his shoulder. "And you may go back whence you came, Duncan Shawcross. I will not have you disrupting Mrs. Byng's kitchen even more than it is at present." She lowered her voice, not that it could be heard above Mrs. Byng's noisy keens. "You know your compliments have her in a flutter at the best of times. Normally it is quite adorable, I agree, but you are rather making things worse at present." Petra narrowed her eyes, seeing how Duncan's were dancing with merriment as he made for the nearby stoneware jar that held a fresh batch of Mrs. Byng's ginger biscuits. Swiftly, she moved to block his access, holding up the crumpled paper. "And as it was you who brought this offending letter that has caused the unsettling of my household, you may leave without a biscuit." A flash of white teeth, more so than most because he did not partake of tobacco like other men, and Duncan gave one of his cheeky bows. "My apologies, my lady," he said, his eyes lingering a moment too long on her mouth, as if he might lean in and give her lower lip a bite in the same manner he would his favourite biscuit. Then he added in a whisper, "Especially for being quite adorable." With an elegant tip of his head to the 4 other women present, he turned on his heel, with Sable bounding after him. Petra rolled her eyes at his retreating back, knowing she would turn to find Mrs. Byng and the kitchen maid both further in a state, and Mrs. Ruddle with the edges around her stern mouth softening despite herself. And Annie, by thunder, the lips of her lady's maid would be twitching with the desire to giggle, though Petra knew it was only the combination of Duncan being his most charming, along with the sense of ridiculous permeating the kitchen, that could have accomplished such a feat. Yet, if Petra caught Annie's eye, all would be lost. Neither would be able to keep a serious countenance, and Mrs. Byng would likely drop to the flagstone floor in a puddle of blubbering tears if she thought either was laughing at her expense. And that, for a number of reasons, the topmost being her respect for her cook, could never happen. "Right," she said, and began to smooth out the paper without yet facing the others, to allow them time to collect themselves. For, despite the fact that Forsyth House was run by Lady Petra on a small complement of loyal servants who were made to be comfortable in Petra's presence, they remained ever mindful of the fact that Lady Petra was the daughter of the 5th Earl of Holbrook, that she was a goddaughter to the Duchess of Hillmorton, and a favourite of both her Grace and the Duke, and that only a couple of months earlier, in late June, Petra had saved the life of Prince Frederick, the King and Queen's 2nd son, earning the favour of Her Majesty and the entire royal family. What was more, proud women they all were, these servants of Forsyth House, proud of their work, of their station, and of their ability to successfully run such a large house with such a small contingency, when most houses of this size required twice as many, if not more. They were proud of their connection to the House of Forsyth, the Earl, and Lady Petra herself too. And since Petra had scandalised London society by announcing that she would never marry, and lately had become wrapped up in adventures that could have taken her life and tarnished the Forsyth name, she constantly reminded herself of her own luck to have these women in her household. Thus she would take whatever bad news was contained on this fine stationery without judgment toward Mrs. Byng. The worried frown that had been slowly building on her face eased as she took in the words written in a very fine hand indeed, and then the crest that was recognisable to every person in London, whether or not they were able to read the words themselves. She spun round, delight in her voice. "But Mrs. Byng, what is causing you such vexation? This is wonderful news. You have been invited to Windsor Castle in a fortnight's time by Her Majesty herself." Petra scanned the wording again, her smile growing. "Oh, how wonderful! It is a patisserie competition for the most talented bakers of the ton." Mrs. Byng appeared little comforted by this revelation, however. Petra thus hastened to explain, but not before asking the kitchen maid to bring tea and slices of currant-studded pound cake for all. "All this invitation means is that, should you wish it, you would spend a week at Windsor Castle competing with 9 other cooks in a baking competition as a diverting exercise and nothing more." "But I read something about being blinded, my lady." Mrs. Byng clutched her wooden spoon to her chest as if it would protect her. "Is that to be my fate, should my bakes not be considered worthy?" Hurriedly, Petra reread the invitation, then had to curl her toes tightly to keep from smiling. "I am happy to say that is not the case at all, Mrs. Byng. It is merely a blind competition, meaning when the judges taste the competitors' entries, they do so without knowing who made what biscuit or fairy cake, loaf of bread, or what have you.